as to what is behind all of this. Is the country being kept safe in a way that it should? Is Angela Merkel's open door policy on immigration partly down to some of this? Let's go to Berlin. We can talk to a security expert at the European Foundation for Democracy, Alexander Ritzmann, and also with us, Professor of National Security Studies and Director of Defence Studies at King's College London, John Gearson. Afternoon to you both, gentlemen. Alexander, can I start with you? I mean,
sure.
we have a mixture of attacks here, don't we? I mean, some linked to terrorism now quite clearly, some that are not, but presumably it is all going to raise an awful lot of questions about intelligence and security within the German borders.
It is, and Germany is currently in a mode of shock. On one hand, there's confusion, there's irritation. On the other hand, these kind of attacks have been expected. They have been announced by security institutions that there can be no absolute security and that in some cases attacks might happen. So now we have to deal with the situation on the ground.
John Gearson, what's your view on what we have seen over the last week? I mean, this whole spate of attacks for 4 different reasons. Not something that we see here in the UK on this level at the moment. What could Germany learn, if anything, from us?
Well, I mean, I think the pressures that Germany are facing are pretty unprecedented for Western European countries in terms of the mass migration that occurred in the last 12 months. And of course, the vast majority, almost all of those migrants posing little or no threats to Germany, but it causes social tension, and these attacks are designed to exploit that. And I think we have to see them in the context of the attacks in France, the possibility that the attempted abduction of a British airman last week may prove to be a terrorist attack. They all give the impression of an Islamic State capable of launching attacks throughout Europe. They are in themselves individually, although deadly for those involved, not that significant. But there is this sense that IS's call for action is being heeded by some people.
Alexander, with all that happening, social cohesion in Germany, we know put under pressure because of the mass immigration, that open door policy from Angela Merkel. I mean, that can come as no surprise, but this is really going to add to those problems in a way that is going to have to be politically addressed pretty quickly, one would imagine.
They have to, but they should not be confused and they should not be mixed together. You know, we have 500,000 Syrian refugees in Germany at the moment, and the number is increasing. And the federal police announced that the average Syrian refugee commits fewer criminal acts than the average German citizen. Okay, these people are fleeing the war, they are trying to stay safe, they try to get away from misery. So if we look at the huge number of 500,000 Syrians in Germany right now, and now we have one Syrian who killed a woman in a knife attack that looks at the moment like it would be rather domestic violence than terrorism. And we have one Syrian person that exploded himself at a music festival in Ansbach, which seems to be connected to the Islamic State's propaganda, their call to commit terrorist acts. We have to, keep calm and carry on in a way. We have to keep a cool head because what my colleague mentioned is that this is what the so-called Islamic State wants. It wants to co-radicalize the majority of the society. They want to spread fear. They want the majority to discriminate Muslims, to be fearful of them, and to push them towards radicalism. So this is the challenge, how to generate security for everyone without overreacting towards the strategy and the trap that the Islamic State is kind of producing here for European governments and society.
And although a lot of people, Alexander, watching you will agree with that and sort of the idea of keeping a cool head, not conflating the issues, you have a very big problem in Germany, don't you, in that obviously members of the public will conflate those issues. That's inevitable to an extent, but politically, you've got an election coming up. And that means that things change, the views change, and the reactions will change as a result.
Absolutely, but there is responsibility for every policymaker, for every politician, for every media person to focus on the facts that are there and not to conflate things and not to increase the problem and by trying to benefit from it for whatever reason. And this is an ongoing challenge, of course. Other countries have been going through this. Great Britain has been gone through this, the 7/7 attacks in 2005. Germany is currently learning on how to deal with this. There's a challenge regarding integration and immigration, and then there's a challenge regarding terrorism. And these two things so far are not really connected based on facts, but emotionally, of course, they are. So this is going to be a test how prepared we are as a democratic and free society. What is our level of resilience towards people who want to provoke us and want us to overreact and want us to alienate Muslims and who want us to radicalize people because of our reactions? So this is kind of tricky and challenging, and we will see how Germany is coping with this.
John, in terms of security operation, and keeping a check and listening to the chatter and all that sort of business. I mean, it's difficult enough at the very best of times. How much more difficult is it when, and obviously we don't want to label all of those refugees in any way, shape or form. As you say, most of them are perfectly peaceful, ordinary people, and yet it is a huge influx of people to monitor and clearly causing concern.
Yes, and I don't think it's realistic to monitor 500,000 people in any way. The Germans are going to face some tricky questions. First of all, their hesitance about monitoring communications, which has long-standing historical and political roots, I think will end up being reviewed if attacks continued. Britain is having its own debate, but we are, at the moment, I would say, more accepting of the need for the intelligence agencies to be able to monitor communications. Gun control, perhaps, the shooting in Munich was allegedly not IS related, but the fact that an individual can get hold of a weapon apparently with lots of ammunition has got to worry the Germans. But I think ultimately the societies of Europe are going to have to accept that individuals, even without direct guidance or instruction other than being told to do something, are going to find ways to threaten people, and we are going to have to accept that our lives are going to become a little bit less free, with a little bit more, or perhaps in some cases a lot more security. And that is a danger for us all, because our counterterrorism policies are basically rooted in maintaining, quote, normal life. And it's not normal to have to be scanned to go to an outdoor music festival in southern Germany in July. That may be the new normality.
Okay, John and Alexander, we have to leave it there. Thank you both very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Thanks.